Okay, I've prepared a presentation for everyone tonight. The reason why we chose the subject we did is it's the biggest effect on everybody's life over the next 10 to 20 years, for sure. There are a lot of problems in Kamloops. I'm sure if we went around the room right now, we could come up with a list of 20 problems that are affecting us on a day-to-day basis. But I don't think any of those problems or issues are as big as this one. That's why we chose this as our first issue. So what I'm here to talk to you about tonight is sustainable development and how that's going to affect your life, your property rights, your house, and perhaps your access to water and transport as well. So first of all, who am I? I do see some familiar faces out here. Thanks for coming, guys. Mom in the back. My name is Geoff Snicer. I was born in Kamloops. So I spent my life growing up on the mountains, playing, throwing dirt bombs, fishing in the river, just like a normal Kamloops kid. Since then I moved away. I work in oil and gas, and I've traveled around the world, seen a lot of things, and I ended up back here in Kamloops. So I love this city. I love British Columbia. I think it's one of the best places to be in the world. And I'm also a very proud Canadian. So I'll just get this out of the way at the start. I love Canada, and you know, a lot of us think there's a lot of things happening right now, and we don't all agree on everything. I do drive a truck that says Save Canada on it. It's out in the parking lot. It's wrapped from side to side with a giant Canadian flag because I love this country. Okay, but that's not why I came here tonight. If anybody does want to talk to me about that, I'm more than happy to talk afterwards, but I came here tonight to talk to you guys about sustainable development. So we're going to go through 6 sections tonight. I'm going to try and talk fairly quickly because there's a lot of stuff here. If I'm going too fast, someone say something, I'll slow down. We're going to cover what is sustainable development, how does sustainable development work in Kamloops, how it's going to affect our land and water use, housing, transport, and maybe some solutions of how we can deal with these issues. I'm going to make some claims tonight. I hope to back all this up with evidence. This isn't just some wild stuff I'm bringing to you. So first claim I'm going to make is that sustainable development is the most impactful change on our lives. The second is that sustainable development, unchecked, could have significant negative impacts on our lives and our rights. Third is that sustainable, the UN SDGs, otherwise known as the Sustainable Development Goals. There's 17 goals that cover everything in our society, and it's an agreement between all the countries in the world. Basically, how I would describe it is an integrated management and reporting system to advance policy goals on poverty, hunger, health, resources, energy, water, equity, gender, education, economy, basically every single aspect of your life. But I think rather than focus on the definition that you find right now, it's important to know a little bit about the history. This is an article from 1991 in Kamloops This Week. And what they're discussing, this is 2 guys that were going around something called a round table. It was set up by the social credit government, and they were sent out to do community meetings to discuss with people in BC what they think sustainable development is. And they came up with this definition: ensuring that our use of resources and the environment today does not damage the prospect of their being used by future generations. And that sounds pretty good. We don't want to take what our kids are going to use. Obviously, we want them to grow up and have all the things that we grew up with and the natural resources. But as someone from the Thompson Watershed Coalition said, sustainable development is an oxymoron. Something cannot sustain, which means to stay the same, and develop at the same time, which means to change it and grow it. It's an oxymoron. It doesn't work. If we look a little bit more at the history, go all the way back to 1972, there was the United Nations Conference on Humanity and Environment. That fellow there, his name is Maurice Strong. He's Canadian. He's a Canadian oil man from Alberta. He later became the Secretary General of the United Nations. He was also the CEO of Petro-Canada just before the National Energy Program. In 1987, there was a report called the Brundtland Commission came out, and they came out with the definition of sustainable development that I just read off to you guys. And that's where that word came from. There's 1991, we had a roundtable in BC. And then in 1992, something pretty substantial happened, which was the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development. The result of that conference was a 300-page report, which is a comprehensive, actually I won't even tell you what it is, but it's supposed to be the way forward in the 21st century. And we signed on to that as a country under Brian Mulroney. This is a quote from Maurice Strong. He says, current life, and mind you, this is 1992, just to put this in context. Current lifestyles and consumption patterns of the affluent middle class involving high meat intake, the use of fossil fuels, electrical appliances, home and workplace air conditioning, and suburban housing are not sustainable. So you need to keep this in mind when we're talking about sustainable development. So what is Agenda 21? Rather than tell you what I think it is, and I highly recommend everybody here go home and Google this on the internet. There's a lot of reading to do. We'll go back to Kamloops this week. This is 1992. It says, Agenda 21 will be a blueprint for global sustainable development, which will extend into the 21st century. Sounds pretty simple. We can find out a little bit more if we look at this report from 1994. So this was written by an organization called the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. Justin mentioned them earlier. They're one of the groups that heavily influences politics here at Kamloops. So what they sell themselves as is a federation where small municipalities can all get together and speak truth to power so they can get stuff from the federal government, and to an extent that's true. But what they also do is take what the federal government wants, or perhaps the United Nations, and pushes that down to the municipalities. So they ran this report in 1994. This is advising municipalities on what they should do. It says Agenda 21 recognizes that unsustainable development includes suburban sprawl, continued dependence on the private automobile, and residential development. Using official community plans, there should be delineated hard edges limiting where suburban development will continue, more mixed-use development integrating residential with office, and promoting public transit, walking, and bicycling over the private automobile. Something else also came out of the meeting in 1992 in Rio. It's called the Rio Declaration, which Canada did sign up to as well. The Rio Declaration came out with some new doctrines that we adopted. The first one, I can summarize it as: we must do everything with the lens of the environment. We have to consider the environment in every single thing we do, no matter what it is. The second is that states should reduce and eliminate unsustainable patterns of production and consumption. So if something's considered unsustainable, it's got to go. The third, and perhaps the most impactful doctrine that was adopted out of this, is called the precautionary approach. And it says it shall be widely applied with, and the lack of full scientific certainty shall not be used as a reason not to do things. You guys got that? So we have to do it, and there's no proof necessary. This is a complete 180 of proof-based, science-based policy.
Wow.
You can see this in the official documents for sustainability. This is the Federal Sustainability Development Act from the Government of Canada. And even in this document, if you scroll down below all the other points, it talks about social, economic, justice, equity, gender, it goes on and on and on. But the very first point, what does it tell you? The principle of sustainable development is continually evolving. It means everything and nothing. It can't be defined. If we can't define what sustainable means, maybe we can define what unsustainable means. We have what Maurice Strong told us. So we can start there. We know that automobiles are unsustainable, air conditioning, appliances, eating meat, suburban homes, fossil fuels, rural living, farming, fertilizer, just to name a few. If you're really interested, the list goes on and on. You can check. There's a group called C40 Cities, which is actually referenced in the the Community Climate Action Plan here in Kamloops. So the question is here, are we involved in mission creep? We went to do one small change to limit emissions, and it seems like now we're getting into everything. Maybe it's time to hit the brakes and step back.
Yes.
Oh, flying, also unsustainable. What does sustainable development mean in practice? So this is the modern definition. We've got that nice colorful little wheel there, which is also the same colored logos that Kamloops uses on all their official stuff, and you can see this on cities across North America right now. It's very popular. They're telling us here that sustainable development is the intersection between environmental, social, and economic factors. And the government is going to set this all up for us. So what are they actually telling us? Like if we really boil this down, what are they telling us? They're saying that a government-managed environment, government-managed social values, and government-managed economy. It kind of sounds like we're talking about something different now,
Yes.
right? It's all how you define it and what the words mean. Is sustainable development even going to solve the problem? So this is a map showing all the emissions coming out of Asia. So right now we're on a course to cut emissions based on, I believe it's COP21, it's the Paris Agreement. Canada puts out less than 2% of the world's emissions. Yet most of the emissions that come from the United States, they're on a big reduction plan right now, but they're coming out of the developing world. As people come up out of poverty, they want to have the same things we have, so they're creating a lot of carbon. If we really cared and we wanted to make the biggest impact, we wouldn't be doing sustainable development in Canada, we would be directing those resources to the developing world.
Yeah.
So the answer is no. Quick recap. Everything we do must be sustainable because climate. No discussion is allowed. Sustainable development cannot be defined. It's always changing. New legal and legislative doctrines have been adopted, like the precautionary principle. No proof is necessary. Plans were not conceived or written with Canadian interests first. They were written outside of Canada by consultants. Much of our modern life is considered unsustainable and will soon change if we continue with these plans. The result is going to be more government control in your life. And it's not going to stop the next climate crisis. It's not going to stop the next forest fire. Everything that they got you worried about in the media right now, this is not going to have an effect on it.